Hello students, welcome to another Class 12 Education session. And in our previous class, we were studying about growth and development. So even this class, we will be continuing with the same topic. And in the last class, if we have a quick recap, then we studied about the definition of growth, the definition of development, and then we also tried to understand about the differences, some of the differences between growth and development, right? And we also started with the principles of growth and development, isn't it? And in the last class, we could do only one principle because the topic is very vast. So today, also let us continue with the same lesson and the concept or the principles of growth and development, okay? So if it will be very helpful if you can have your textbooks with you as you're watching or listening the classes, right? In your text, there are 10 principles of growth and development that is given. And I told you in the previous class that these principles, the principles that are there, the 10 principles, it mostly talks about development because growth is just a very small part of development, isn't it? Development is much more broader, right? So we have already done with development. The first one, development is a continuous process. We already understood about it. So when we say that development is a continuous process, it is always going on. It is never stopping. It is going on maybe at a slower rate, but it is always continuing. That is why the first principle of growth and development is that it is a continuous process. And when we look into the second principle of growth and development, rate of growth and development is not uniform. So what do you mean by uniform then? Uniform would mean everything is same, isn't it? But here in the principle, it is saying that it is not uniform, not the same. So the rate of growth and development is not uniform. I'll give you an example. When you were a baby, right after you were born from your mother's womb, your growth was very fast because a lot of things were changing in your body and then there was growth taking place, right? After that, childhood came. So in the childhood period, the rate of growth and development is a little slower compared to when you were a baby or 1 year old, right? And then it is slow during the childhood stage, and then again it picks up speed when you become an adolescent, the stage that you are in right now. There is a lot of changes that are going on in your body, right? So the development rate is very fast. Again, when you reach adulthood, remember your body will stop growing, right? Of course, development will happen, but it will be in a much more slower pace, right? So at every stage of life, in the first principle, we talked about the different stage of human life, right? Right from the day that you were born, the prenatal period, to when you are an adult till the day you die. There are different stages, right? So at every stage, the rate of growth and development is not uniform. Sometimes it is very fast and sometimes it is very slow. But we must remember that growth and development is happening with you, okay? So that is the second principle of growth and development. When you look at the third principle, students, this is again very important. When you look into the third principle of growth and development, it talks about individual difference. So what is individual difference? You as a student or your friends or your classmate and me, I as an individual, we all look different, we all act different, our behaviors are different, right? So that is the principle of individual difference. And psychology says that no two individuals are alike. That means each one of us is unique in our own way, right? So under this principle of individual differences, there are 4 points that you must remember. The first one is development follows a pattern. So it will follow a pattern, certain pattern. You know, if after you are born from your mother's womb, after you come into this world, you don't suddenly jump to the adolescent stage, right? You have to go through some certain procedures, right, in your growth and development rate also. So that is why it says that it follows a certain pattern. Okay, that is the first point under the third principle of growth and development. If you're following your textbook, this will not be confusing. So I want you to be in touch with your textbook as you're listening to this and watching this. The second point says that, again, this is very important. The rate and speed of development may vary in individual cases, but the sequence of the pattern is the same. This sentence is very important, students. I'll give you an example. Take the case of two children. My drawing skills are very good, so I'm going to show you. Take the example of two children. One is from a poor family and another one is from a rich family, okay? So, according to the situation or according to the facilities that are available for both of these, remember this to come from different homes, right? So one will have lots of facilities at home. That is how, you know, his development will also be very different and very broad compared to this one, right? So it may vary from individual to individual. That is why we're talking about individual differences, remember. But see, for both of this also, they will follow the same sequence. So what do you mean by follow the same sequence? This doesn't mean that if this child belongs to a rich family, then he hasn't gone through the, you know, neonatal or prenatal stage. No, right? He was born and then he was a baby. After that, he was a small child. After that, he will grow into an adolescent, later an adult, right? And same for this child also. So the situations will differ according to the environment and the home situations, but the sequence will be the same. So that is what the second point in the third principle talks about, okay? And if you look at the that was the second point, and now we are coming into the third point under principle of individual difference. So here in the third point, it talks about head to toe sequence. So now, what is head to toe sequence? I'm going to show you a picture here. See, students, this is the head to toe sequence. This is a fetus, okay, when you are in your mother's womb. So here, the fetus is not a fully grown child. After he's born into this world only, certain body features will develop. But right from the time that we are in our mother's womb also, the head portion will develop first. And then it will spread to the other parts of the body. Okay, so the head is a little big if you look into the picture, right? So this is the head to toe sequence that growth and development follows, okay? Even if you're from a rich background, even if you're a black or white, a Naga, an Indian, this sequence is supposed to follow because we are human beings, we are one species, right? So this is the rule of nature, we can say. So head to toe sequence, that is the third point under individual differences, okay? And if you look at the fourth individual difference, here it says near to far sequence. So now, what is near to far sequence? In the fetus, here, the middle part of the body, the torso, we say this as torso, the middle part here, these are the strong muscles, right? So here, the middle portion of the body will develop first. Then it will spread to the other parts of the body, the limbs, the legs, the hands, everywhere. So that is why the first principle is the head to toe principle. The second principle is the near to far principle or sequence, we can say. Okay, so under individual differences, there are 4 points that are given. The first one is development follows a pattern. And then the second point says that development follows a certain sequence. Situations might be different for each child, but the sequence will be the same. Okay. And then the third one says that development follows the head to toe sequence. This we can understand best from the example of a fetus. Okay, and then the fourth one says that development follows the near to far sequence. Okay, we will come into this, the third and the fourth point under individual difference. We're going to study in detail about this as we go into the other principles of development. Okay. Now, let us go into the fourth principle of growth and development. So what does the fourth principle say? Development proceeds from general to specific response. General means the big portion, okay? Specific means the small details. So development will firstly happen in a big situation, and then only it will spread to the smaller parts. Okay, I'll give you an example. If a child, or take the example of a 1-year-old child, he calls daddy to all the male adults, isn't it? Because he's not able to distinguish between who is the father and who is the other person, right? So he knows the word daddy, but he doesn't know where to use that word. But as he grows older, as he becomes a child, as he grows into 2, 3, 4, 5 years, now he knows the difference. So he understands that there is just one daddy for him in this world, and the others will be another person. They can be uncles or whatever, but daddy is just one. So same like that in growth and development also. First the general, the big thing will happen, and then after getting the general concept, we will know in what kind of situation to use which concept key. So that is the principle of development proceeds from general to specific. Now, if you look at the fifth principle of integrating. Here, we understood from the previous classes also that growth and development is to do with so many things, your mental and cognitive, your emotional, your social, and then your physical also, right? So all these are integrating with one another. That means they're mixing up with one another. If you are a person who is, only growing physically, then that is also not normal, right? So everything has to go together. So we can understand that the physical aspect, the emotional aspect, the mental, all these are helping one another and then progressing as we develop as an individual. Okay, so that is the fifth principle. The sixth one under principles of growth and development is principle of interrelation. So here the fifth and the sixth one now here is also somewhat connected. Okay, all the physical, mental, emotional, cognitive aspects that a person undergoes, they are interrelated. That means connected to one another. That means just like I've stated in the earlier point also, they need the help of each other so that a person we can say that a person is fully developing. We can say that way. Okay. Now, let us go into the seventh principle. Development is predictable. So what do you mean by predictable? Here we can say that we can say what the child will grow with. So we can say that development is very predictable. Here in the textbook they have given an example. If you look into the x-ray of the wrist of a child, the bones of the wrist of a child, then we can predict into what kind of size that child will grow into. And even for us teachers also, when we look at you, when we look at your behavior, the way that you act in different kind of situations, we can understand, oh, this boy or this girl is a very good student. He will become something one day. Or this one is, lagging behind in this. We can predict somehow, right? So that is what this principle is talking about, okay? From the present situation, we can somehow predict the future. Now, if you look at the eighth principle of developmental direction. Again, this one is also very important. Students, I want you to listen very carefully. Under principles of developmental direction, it talks about two directions again. One is cephalocaudal, and the other one is proximodistal. So what does this two direction talks about? Cephalocaudal, CEPHALOCAUDAL, D-A-L. It will be good if you can learn the spellings also so that you will not make mistake. Proximodistal is P-R-O-X-I-M-O and then put a dash D-I-S-T-A-L. So that is proximodistal. I'm going to show you a picture again to explain the concept better. Here, students, what do you see in the picture? You see, remember this is just as one baby, okay? One baby, and then there is development going on inside this baby. So if you look at the first picture, I told you about the head to toe sequence, right? So that is cephalocaudal, the same principle. So cephalocaudal will mean growth and development will proceed in a longitudinal axis. So from the upper portions of the body to the lower portions, that means the head to toe. I told you that we're going to discuss about this in detail, right? So the head to toe growth and development taking place from the start, the head portion, to the other parts of the body, that is known as cephalocaudal. Okay, and then now what is proximodistal? Here, proximodistal means the middle part of the body. It will develop first. Center to the periphery or near to far, that is the same thing. So here from the center, it will spread to other parts of the body, other smaller parts of the body. So that is proximodistal. I hope you are clear with what is cephalocaudal and what is proximodistal. Now, if you looked at the ninth principle of growth and development, the ninth one says that development is spiral and not linear. So, what is spiral and what is linear? Let us now try to understand this point better. Here, students, I want you to look at this picture. Here, you can see that, a kind of spring diagram is here, right? Yes or no? So this principle says that growth and development is like this. It is spiral in nature and not linear. This one is wrong. It does not happen straight, but it goes through many changes, and that is how growth and development happens. Okay, so sometimes if you look at the picture, it is given in your textbook also. Later also when you study, you can have a deeper understanding about this concept when you look at the picture. So here, if you look at the arrows, it is moving backwards sometimes, and then it is also coming forward, right? And then as the spiral continues, it is becoming bigger and bigger, right? So this moving backwards and going forward is nothing but consolidation. Okay, so now again, what is consolidation? What is the meaning of consolidation? Consolidation, consolidation. So here, when we see this word, it means that to make ourselves stronger or more solid. Okay, I'll give you an example. Suppose if you are a soldier and then you are supposed to go to war, then what will you do? You will prepare your weapons, your sword, and then get ready to go to war, right? So that means you are consolidating. That means you're making yourself stronger. Okay, and then another example can be a sports person, a sportsman who is supposed to go and participate at an international event, for example, maybe the Olympics. So what does the sports person do? In the time that he gets, he will do a lot of training, isn't it? And then he will get instructions from the coach, and then he'll try to make his body healthier also, right? So that is how he is preparing himself. That means consolidating himself. Okay, so likewise for growth and development also, consolidation happens when we go backwards. So I told you about, the process of growth and development not being uniform, right? Sometimes it becomes slow. So when the rate of growth is becoming slower, then it consolidates itself. That means it is preparing itself. The body or the individual is preparing itself, because I told you that in the childhood stage, growth and development is a little slower, right? So why is it slower? Because in the adolescent stage, the stage that you are in right now, a lot of things are happening in your body, and then you experience puberty also. So in order to cope up with the fast pace of growth in your body during the adolescent stage, in the childhood stage, you consolidate yourself. That means you prepare yourself. Okay, so that is how the process of growth and development happens in a spiral way. And if you have a deeper look at the picture, see, this is very symbolic. If you look at a picture in a deeper way, then it is not straight, right? It is very narrow. There are a lot of twists and turns. So it is depicting life also, students. We don't always go through success, or we don't always go through failures, right? But every time, whatever the situations are thrown into us or we experiences, we learn from it, right? So that is why growth and development is spiral in nature. It has its ups and downs, twists and turns, and it is not linear, it is not straight. Okay, so if you understand this diagram, then the concept will be more clearer to you. Now let us go into the 10th one, the last one under principle, that is growth and development as a joint product of both hereditary and environment. So now, what is hereditary? Hereditary would mean, I told you in the last class also, something that you inherit from your parents or your biological relatives. That means the time that you are in the fetus or the time that you are born with it, okay? It is hereditary. And then what is environment? After you're born, you are inside the home, you're growing up, you meet friends, you go to school, you go to church, right? So that becomes your environment, because you cannot be left alone or you cannot survive alone, right? So you need people. So those other peoples will become your environment. So growth and development, a person is taught, or a person grows and develops because of his hereditary and environment also. That means the inner hereditary is to do with the inner self, right? We cannot change it. And the outer portion will be the environment. So those are the principles of growth and development. We studied about 10 principles. That is, development is a continuous process, and then growth and the rate of growth and development is not uniform, and then there are individual differences also, and then development proceeds from general to specific. They're also interrelated. There is integration between them, and then it follows a spiral way of growing. And then we are a product of both our parents, hereditary, and then our environment also, the outside world, right? So those are some of the principles that we discussed, and these 10 principles are very important. Why is it important? Is because, see, you can relate it in your life also, right? It has already happened in your life and it's already happening, isn't it? So you can relate it with your life also, and if you try to understand the concepts relating it with your life, then you will understand the points better, and then in that way it will be helpful for your exams also, right? So those are the principles of growth and development. And now let us try to look into some of the educational principles of growth and development. Now, what do we mean by educational implications? See, you all study in a school and then you all learn, right? So those are the educational situations that you undergo, right? So how can this growth and development be applied into educational situations, right? So they have given 6 points in the textbook. The first one here says that growth and development should be aligned with the educational system in such a way that all the talents of the child are realized to the fullest potential. That means we, the teachers and your parents and the elders, all combined together must help you to grow physically, mentally, emotionally, and whatever talents that you have should be helped by the elders to let it grow into the fullest potential. Okay? And then if you look at the second one, you have different, not only taking classes, but you have, different programs also inside the school, right? You have functions, you have different things that are organized by the students themselves sometimes. So all these programs, school programs, should be, made in such a way that it makes the child or the student or you students more mature and developed, okay? And then the third one is that good physical growth is also very important. Okay, now, so why is physical growth important? Why is your body important? Because if you have a healthy body, then only you'll feel like learning, isn't it? Suppose you have a stomach ache and then you're sitting inside a classroom, then your cognitive will not cooperate with you, right? You cannot concentrate, isn't it? So physical growth is very important. And one of the factors that affect physical growth is malnutrition. So what is malnutrition? Malnutrition would mean not getting enough nutrients in the body. So you must have studied in your lower classes in your science subject that we need different kinds of nutrients in our body, right? Vitamins, carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and all those, right? So all those are essential for bodily growth and for cognitive growth also. Okay, so if there is malnutrition, for example, in your diet you don't take vegetables, then you take only fried potatoes every morning and every evening. That means your body will not get the sufficient balanced diet that the body requires, isn't it? So you are malnourished, right? So that is why we eat vegetables also, and then we eat fats also, and then we eat meat also, right? So that is why malnutrition should not affect the physical growth of the body. Okay, and then the school curriculum or the textbooks or the learning situations should be made in such a way that the individual differences of the students are met. So we discussed earlier also that each individual, each person, you and I, we are also very different. So each individual is unique and different, right? So school textbooks and curriculums should be met in such a way that, it caters to the individual differences, and then from one stage to another, that means the childhood stage, the adolescent stage, the adulthood stage, all those stages should be taken care of. And then the school syllabus should be met in such a way that both the curricular and co-curricular activities are blended together. So now, what is curricular activities? The things that you learn inside the classroom, or the thing that you are doing right now. You are learning a concept, isn't it? That means you're getting knowledge, right? So that is curricular activity, okay? The physical learning. And then co-curricular would mean the games and sports and all those things, extra things that you do, that will also help in your development. So that is why the extra things and the classroom things should be blended perfectly, okay? And then the fifth one, each stage of growth has its possibilities and limitations. That means under each stage of growth and development, there are some limitations and delimitations. That means there are some advantages and disadvantages. So teachers and the parents and the school syllabus should be met in such a way that all these limitations and advantages are taken care of. For example, you are in class 12 right now, and the school syllabus will not give you something of class 5 level, isn't it? Because we try to understand your cognitive aspect, and then give the topics and subjects in such a manner, right? So all the things should be blended together so that the individual or the child fully develops, okay? And then the sixth one says that the school syllabus or growth and development should be blended in such a way that there is interrelation and then there is integration. Why interrelation and integration? We discussed earlier that the physical, emotional, mental, cognitive, all these aspects are important for growth and development, right? So there should be proper blending, or they should cooperate with one another. And then the school textbooks and the school, the things that you are taught in the school should also be blended in such a manner that there is interrelation and integration. Okay, so those are some of the educational implications of growth and development. Okay, something that you apply or something that you practice. Okay, and when you look at the next topic, that is differences between growth and development. See, we have already discussed about this, the differences between growth and development in the previous classes also, right? So this is just kind of repetition. And see, students, this is very important. If you know about growth, development, then you understand that when there is growth and development, maturation will happen, isn't it? So if you understand these things, and then you know about the principles of growth and development, then whatever kinds of questions that are asked in the exam, you'll be very clear about the concept and then you'll be able to write. Okay, so you all need to be smart learners and you should know when to put the right kind of idea so that you can fetch marks. Okay, so if you look at some of the differences between growth and development, then we know that growth is physical and development is much more broader than physical growth, right? And then growth is just one aspect of development, but development is very comprehensive and it continues from womb to tomb. We understood that way, isn't it? And then growth stops at a certain point of time, but development continues all throughout life. And then growth can be measured, but development can only be observed through keen observation or evaluation. We can look into the behavior and understand. Okay, and then growth is to do with the physical aspect, but development is to do with the overall aspect, that is cognitive, mental, physical, all these things are related. So these are just repetitions. So if you have listened and watched the previous classes and if you are reading the textbook, then you'll be able to understand it better. Okay. And if you look at one concept, that is a concept given by Mrs. Herlock. So here Mrs. Herlock has given a concept about growth and development, and she has said that in growth and development there is some changes that are going on inside the body. Okay, so what are those changes? She has given 4 changes. The first one is change in size. When there is growth and development, your size will change. Okay, and then change in proportion, that means one part of the body or many parts of the body will change, that is change in proportion. And then disappearance of all features. When you grow in size, your old feature will disappear, the old you will disappear, right? And when the old features disappear, that there is acquisition of the new features. So those are the 4 points given by Mrs. Herlock. Okay, this is there even in your question. If you look at the following pages, then there under short answer type question, this question is given. So overall, if you try to understand overall, then growth and development says that growth and development is to do with all the aspects of the individual, that is all quantitative and qualitative aspects. Okay. And when you go to the last page, that is page number 22, again this one talks about the relation between growth and development, isn't it? So here also relation, they have put the individual differences under one category and then they have tried to relate it with one another. Okay, so if you understand about growth and development, then you can write answers about their relationship and then their differences also. Okay, so I want you to look into this and then study it yourself. Okay, you'll be able to relate. So those are the things. That is all about chapter 2, that is growth and development. You have learned many things. You have learned about the differences, the relationship and the principles of growth and development. So that is all for this session. Thank you so much.